Well, I've been waiting all day to talk about this. Ghislaine Maxwell has finally been arrested. Something that, I think everybody wishes it happened a lot sooner, but hey, at least it happened. And I didn't want to talk about this morning when it broke because there wasn't enough information out. All we knew is that she'd been arrested. Well, great. Not much to talk about there, because I would just have to speculate on everything else. Like, for example, why the hell is she in the United States when she knows that if she's here, she can get arrested? I'll get to that later, because that question still has not been answered. I'd still like to know what's going on there. But anyway, what we know so far is that she was arrested in New Hampshire, apparently in some property that she bought back in 2019, nice like 150-acre ranch or something, and that she's essentially being charged with grooming young girls to be sex slaves. I believe the official charge is conspiracy to entice minors to commit illegal sex acts, which sounds pretty accurate, relative to what we've heard over the years that she's done and what she's been accused of by old Jeffy's victims. There, of course, is nothing in here about potential intelligence connections or anything relating to the potential that she was procuring these girls for Epstein to try and entrap powerful billionaires to essentially gather compromat on them. And we'd expect that. The FBI is not going to do that. The most that we really could expect from the authorities in the U.S. Is that Maxwell would be tried for her crimes against children. And it seems as though that's finally going forward. Apparently, the grand jury just indicted her on June 29th. So it's obviously taken a very long time to build this case. Now, something that you might notice, this indictment's coming out of the Southern District of New York. The former domain of Jeff Berman, the U.S. attorney who was big anti-Trump guy, who was just fired by Trump just like a week ago, and then now all of a sudden, as soon as he gets fired, a grand jury indicts Ghislaine Maxwell, and they arrest her. I'm not saying that there's any connection there, but it does seem like very suspicious timing. Because I don't know necessarily. From what I've seen, the whole Epstein thing and big pedo is not so much a partisan issue. I don't think that being concerned about Epstein is something that is unique to Trump supporters or anything like that. There's plenty of people who don't like Trump who have been against Epstein for a very long time. Epstein and Maxwell are not exactly popular people. But it does make me think that perhaps Jeff Berman had some kind of personal connection to them, which is, how these elite relationships work. They're never really about politics. They're about, internal group dynamics. In other words, intra-elite affairs. The idea that, George Bush and Bill Clinton have more in common with one another than they do any of their voters. Maxwell is someone who was, a big socialite in New York. She always went to the parties with all the important people, so it's, quite likely that she had some kind of a personal relationship with Jeff Berman, being the U.S. attorney in Manhattan. I would not be at all surprised if they often appeared at the same social gatherings. But that, of course, is not enough for me to accuse him of stifling this investigation. Now, moving back to what I started with, her being in New Hampshire. Apparently, she was at a property that she owned, although I don't see why she would be in New Hampshire, because from last we heard, she was hiding out in Paris, in an apartment there, and people, of course, the tabloids were just writing how, it's just within walking distance of Epstein's old apartment in Paris. And going on about the gossipy stuff about who else lived in the neighborhood. But the real meat of that story was that she was hiding out in Paris because she happens to have been born in France. And the way that French law works is that someone who is born in France cannot be extradited from France to another country, no matter what the crime is. So they have to be charged in France. And so if there was an indictment of her in the United States, then the U.S. couldn't, go to the French government and say, hey, This Maxwell woman, she was, she headed up a grooming gang, and we want to take her down. And the French wouldn't just say, okay, let's go grab her and ship her off to New York. The only way that she can be affected in France is if she is tried in a French court and indicted by a French prosecutor. And so that, while possible, because Epstein did commit crimes in France as well as in the United States, she was much safer over there than she was here. So it doesn't make any sense to me why she would take the risk of flying over here. I don't know at all what's going on. It almost makes you think that it was intentional. And it's strange that the indictment happens to line up quite perfectly, because when she was hiding over in France, apparently this indictment didn't even exist yet, so she wasn't in any danger of being arrested at that point. But then she comes over here, and all of a sudden on the 29th of June, grand jury hands down an indictment. It all seems so perfect to me, that she just happened to let her guard down and enter the United States, right around the time that she would be formally indicted. And of course, she had no idea that she hadn't already been indicted when she came over here, at least, because those indictments are supposed to be sealed so that they can be, carried out so that the person doesn't know that the raid is coming. So already here, she's not even dead yet, and, which, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this already is a very, very suspicious situation. There's a lot of unanswered questions here, and a lot of questions that, frankly, will never be answered if the story of her pal Jeff is any precedent. So speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of people now that she's been arrested, are essentially under the, they've already made the conclusion that she's going to die. The question is how and when. How much time does she have left on this earth? And they're not talking about her, of course, being executed after being tried and, spilling all the secrets of what happened, with Epstein's whole, pedo empire that he built. People are, of course, assuming that she will be suicided, just like Jeff was in prison. And in fact, the prosecutors are talking about sending her to the very same, federal institution in which Jeffrey Epstein died, and where his death was covered up. And that's, I'm not saying that, one way or the other how he died. You don't even need to go that far, because they covered up however he died. They destroyed the evidence. There was video footage, from the security cameras, and the prison guards were supposed to be checking on him. They falsified the records to say they checked on him and that he was fine, and then they also, destroyed the video footage. And so we don't know why that is. It could be that Epstein himself paid them, which wouldn't make any sense. If he wanted to kill himself, why would he want to destroy the evidence of him killing himself? Seems much more likely that whatever, otherworldly power wanted to take him out made some kind of an arrangement with the folks within the MCC to destroy the evidence. Furthermore, the family of Epstein had their own autopsy performed. Actually, no, that wasn't it. They had the official autopsy observed by that. What was the name of the guy? He just did the autopsy for George Floyd, the same guy who just did that autopsy, the guy who also did the Mike Brown autopsy. I can't remember his name at the moment, but that guy said that, it seems like Epstein was strangled, not like he hung himself. And of course, these jail cells are designed so that people can't hang themselves. The sheets are, reportedly as thin as paper. They couldn't support the weight of a heavy man like Epstein. So this leads us to believe that the MCC is thoroughly corrupt, and that if Maxwell is sent there, that she will almost certainly be taken out. That is, unless the federal government does its job and actually protects her this time. And, of course, you have to imagine that, well, if he was killed, it has to be, some corruption within the federal government. which is almost certainly the case, but the folks at the top, would have to come down and try to really micromanage this. I mean, if there's going to be any case that gets special attention from folks like Bill Barr, assuming that he does have the right intentions, that he did want Epstein to be brought to trial, well, then he did a poor job of trying to manage the situation. And it would be completely unforgivable if he let a second opportunity pass by like this. The same is true for Trump, because this is such a high-profile case that Trump really needs to make sure that Ms. Maxwell is kept in perfect health so that she can spill the beans on Epstein and on Prince Andrew and on whoever else, Bill Clinton, all the other folks, everyone really who was in the little black book, everyone who was touching the kids. We need to hear it from the horse's mouth. That's what people want. We want some semblance of closure, truth, or else, people will continue to resent the elite for being the bunch of pedophiles that they are. So with that said, if you gain anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.